What is going on, YouTube? It's Tyler from Mission VR, where it's my mission to bring you guys good quality VR content. Have you ever wanted to be a badass orc slaying, skeleton bashing, goblin slaughtering warrior in virtual reality before? Well, you have that ability in what is quite possibly the most difficult VR fighting game that I have ever played. And I love difficult games because now there's a skill set involved and a true challenge has begun, which allows you to really hone a specific skill set. Therefore, a lot of replayability, because whenever you have to have a skill set involved in order to win, it does require a little bit of time to develop, and that is battle talent. And we are going to be taking a look at how awesome and epic the fighting is in this game in today's video. So make sure you guys drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. And speaking of epic and awesome, if you guys are looking for some epic and awesome accessories, please do check out the links in the description. I have an array of VR accessories as well as discount codes for you guys to use to be able to secure some of those accessories. And they're pretty freaking awesome, and they certainly upgrade your VR gaming experience. So make sure you guys do check that out. And without further ado, let's get on into it. So congratulations, you made it this far, which means you're interested in playing one of the hardest melee fighter VR games that I have ever played. Great. So let's talk a little bit about this game here. For $19.99, you could pick this title up. I think that's an incredibly fair price, to be quite honest with you. $19.99, you're absolutely going to get your money's worth out of this game. I even just the sandbox mode, if that was all it was the sandbox mode, which is really kind of a map editor to some extent because you can change the environments somewhat. It's very limited. I will be honest. It's very limited. But you can set up full-blown battles between, if you want to be on the side of the skeletons versus humans, you can do that. If you want to be on the side of the humans versus, goblins or, demons or wraiths or whatever you want to do, you can set up a full-blown battle so that this arena is stacked with enemies and, opportunities for combat. And that's just the sandbox mode. And I think that, for $20, the sandbox mode would be kind of worth it because this game, is pretty fun when it comes to, enemy types and really just having to work on, being better at the game, which is cool compared to something like Blade and Sorcery, where it's very, very easy. And not to say that Blade and Sorcery is a bad game in any stretch, but this game kind of has the same level of combat. When it comes to like the physics-based interactions, like it feels just as clean as Blade and Sorcery. But in my opinion, there's a lot more going on in this game when it comes to enemy types and weapon types, out of the base game. Of course, there is a full-blown modded community in Blade and Sorcery that adds a ton of mods, but there's also a huge mod community in Battle Talent that adds a lot of content as well. So yes, there is mods in this game, which is awesome because it adds a ton more things to do and weapons to use, as well as enemies to fight against. There's a lot of good things going on when it comes to, replayability just from the sandbox elements of this game, which most of this footage, like I said, is in sandbox just because, it was easier to record in sandbox, just me fighting against a bunch of enemies rather than me playing the regular mode and dying a bunch, which I did because the game is very difficult. But let's talk about these other modes. So there is an adventure mode in this game, which is basically the roguelike version of the game. So you go through a series of levels, and they definitely, sometimes offer a challenge because you don't know which weapons you're going to get when you spawn in. So sometimes you get just like a two-handed sword, and you have to go against like, an enemy type that really is kind of hard to use a two-handed sword against. So therefore you have to get creative in your methods of killing them to be able to beat the level, which I actually like. This created that little bit of artificial challenge to some extent. On top of that, the enemies actually have pretty dynamic move sets. So you do have to be kind of on your toes about, dodging and blocking and parrying and all that good stuff that comes with a fighting VR game. So that created a next level of challenge. So this game certainly had its moments for me where I was a little bit frustrated because I died 5 or 6 times in a row fighting the same boss until I finally figured out enough of the moveset. And then even when I did figure out enough of the moveset, I still had to be vigilant enough to dodge and actually, partake in some of these boss fights. So it created this gameplay loop for me where when I finished the boss fight, finally, I had that sense of accomplishment that, so many games lack these days because they're just too easy. That is something that I have loved so much about like Elden Ring and the Souls series of games. And this game, I loved the challenge level in this game. I thought it was definitely there. And that was only in adventure mode, which is the basic roguelike mode where you can upgrade your character get perks and, unlock new weapons, as well as, move through the dungeons, which are randomly generated when it comes to enemy types and what weapons you're going to be using, as well as some parkour levels to allow you to, run through dungeons and, jump over obstacles, as well as, run on walls and just do some cool stuff. This game, I think, actually had some pretty good movement in it. But if that's not just all, there's also a challenge mode in this game. So if you start to get pretty good at this game, you have maybe 20 or so hours on it, you're pretty familiar with all the enemy types at this point. You've gone through the process of learning certain weapons, learning how to fight against certain enemies. And now you're at that point where you're looking for a serious challenge. Well, this game has it and it offers it. So freaking A, it's awesome. So for somebody like me who, put in a bunch of hours to this game, got to a point where I was like, okay, like I'm starting to get the hang of this game a little bit. Then I go into challenge mode and I get my ass kicked for sure. So there's a lot going on here. And again, remind you, the price of this game is only $19.99. I've played a lot of games that are $40 that don't even have anywhere near as much good content as this game provided me, as well as just some of the epic cinematic kills and feeling I was able to get while moving around and maneuvering some of these weapons. And I loved the creativity in some of the weapons. In particular, I loved the demon sword that I was like kind of a half lightsaber, and the plasma bow, which was basically an energy sword that turned into a bow, with the click of a button. So it was a transforming weapon, and that provided some epic kills. As moments where I was just switching back and forth between the bow and the sword and just, massacring, hordes of people and enemies. It was really, really cool. This game had some of those moments for me where I was like, man, I just performed one of the most badass kills of all time. And I just felt like an incredible warrior. And again, with the ability to customize battles in this game, like I said, you can set up, if you want to role play a little bit and, have maybe you are with 3 other demon hunters and you go into these caverns, right? And then there's a bunch of wraiths and you fight against, 20 or so of these enemies, and you're outnumbered and you got to fight to the death. You can really do a lot in this game, customizability wise when it comes to arena fights. And I loved that. I think there's a lot of replay value here on top of the mods. So you're getting a ton of content in this game for $20. Now, on top of that, I think the sound design in this game was pretty solid. Nothing that, I would say would win awards or has blew me away, but everything got the job done. I thought the sounds were pretty good. The soundtrack was fine. I would have definitely liked to see maybe more variety in the music, but nothing that was super groundbreaking or immersion breaking there. Graphically, I thought this game did an excellent job in some areas, and then some other areas that it could maybe improve upon. One of the big ones graphically for me was the fact that the enemy types, I thought they were very, very well detailed. I felt like there was a strong variety of enemy types. Some had armor, some didn't. The armor mattered on the enemy types. And there were times where you could actually see if you were using a blunt weapon or something and you were going up against an enemy with armor, you could actually knock the armor off of them and it would be a visual effect in game, which I thought was really cool. And then you would actually expose a weak point, which allows you to actually, do more damage to the enemy. So again, the combat system in this game is very, very dynamic, and graphically it enhanced it, as well as the blood effects were also really, really cool. So you would stab maybe a goblin or an orc or something, something that had a lot more health, right? One or 2 stabs isn't going to do anything to it, and you shove your sword through its chest, and then it's fighting back against you, and it's pushing you with another big sword, right? And you could see all the bloody marks on its chest, and it just, I don't know, it was just cool. It was a really cool experience. I thought enemy-wise, the graphics were so good for the enemy types. They really just fit the bill and really just looked amazing. Weapons in your hands and character skin. My character skin, of course, my hands looked fine. I thought they all looked really good, nice, well in detail. They felt good. I like having a full body. I think that's something that's now an essential in VR. This game had it, big plus there. Weapons. The weapons looked fantastic in my hands. And again, I was playing on standalone, so everything's going to look even better on PC, but the weapons looked really good in my hands. I felt like everything felt realistic and just looked amazing. So graphically, they're also huge plus. Now, where the graphics, lost me a little bit were the arena types themselves. There really wasn't anything special here. Most of the game, even in adventure mode, is just arena, and you just go out into the arenas, and there's several different, biomes, I'll call them, or skyboxes, whatever you want to refer to it as, in the arenas. So it does change of pace you up a little bit, but at the end of the day, they're really bare bones. We're talking about an air temple, and it's just an open, dusty field with some lightning in the background. And we're talking about an underground, cavern, which is basically just a cave, an underground dungeon type cave. And then there's, some other areas that are just more it seems like like an underground, like goblin stronghold was more greenish and whatnot. Like I said, the environments themselves, I think this is an area that this game can improve upon graphically, but overall, I thought graphically this game was pretty damn good. So we've combined now, you know, great combat, a lot of replayability with some pretty good graphics and a certainly doable soundtrack. So what do we have here? We have a great freaking melee combat VR game, and that's what this game is. Battle Talent is honestly one of the most fun fighting melee combat games that I have played yet to date in VR. It's up there along the lines with like Until You Fall for me, and even Blade and Sorcery. And I don't want to crap on Blade and Sorcery too much. I think I actually have a lot of hours in that game, but you know, as VR gets more developed, I'm noticing that Blade and Sorcery really, for a long time, was just a tech demo sandbox that, you know, happened to be ahead of its time, where Battle Talent is now a little bit more of a full game, and I'm certainly enjoyed my playthrough of this game. So when it comes to a verdict on whether or not I think you should hop into Battle Talent, I definitely do. I think that if you like melee combat games and, you know, the idea of a challenge in virtual reality, I think you're going to really like this game. There's a lot to do here on top of the mods that add extra content. I think you can definitely get some hours on this game. And I do think it's one of those games that if, you know, you're bored on a Friday or Saturday night, you have nothing to do, you're looking around for something to do, you know, well, here you go. Now you're going to be able to hop in, simulate a battle, maybe go for an hour just fighting against, you know, a skeleton army with, you know, a bunch of, you know, computer generated human warriors next to you, and, you know, you're playing out some fantasy in your head, right? That's what you can do in this game. And I think that that in itself offers a lot of replay value, as well as, again, like I said, the endless amount of content coming from the mods that are in this game, as well as the roguelike and challenge mode. There's so much to do in this game, and for $20, you're not going to really find a better buy, in my opinion. I think this is a really good buy, especially if you're into VR sword fighting experiences. Now, before we wrap this up, I do want to say I would love to see the team from Battle Talent, and I know they're going to watch this video back, and I hope they get all the way to this point and they listen to me. Take this game and move it into another game. I want to see this game developed out more in a full-blown RPG setting. Develop the levels, develop the map, make it open world, or maybe even I know that's a big ask, but right, make it open world. Give me this game's combat, this game's AI, more enemies, more weapons with a full-fledged RPG. You will never see me playing another game. Like, I would love this with co-op, of course. And I know that they are planning on adding co-op to this game at some future point. So yes, take this game, build upon it. This is a building block, in my opinion. This game is a building block. There's a lot here right now. It is more sandboxy with some roguelike elements to it, but it's a building block. If they take this and they move this combat with, you know, this weapon handling into a full-fledged RPG with a full-fledged out story, you know, more enemy types, you know, a progression system, armors that you can equip and you can actually see on your body. These are the things that I want to see from VR in the future. And if it has that, all that stuff with skills in this level of combat, man, you're going to find yourself having Game of the Year. With that being said, guys, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this review of Battle Talent. If you guys did, please do drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, check out the links in the description for some MetaQuest accessories, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.